Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. It is a cold and blustery, snowy day today, a high of -7 degrees Celsius, and tonight it's going down to -12 degrees Celsius. That's getting pretty cold. Even though it's like winter outside, it's still spring here in the greenhouse. Today I'll be repotting some young trees. These are trees that are in their second or third year of growth. I'll start here. I've got a mulberry tree that I dug up from the backyard. When I planted it in this pot last year, I did some pretty severe root pruning. I wasn't sure if the tree was going to live or not, and it recovered and grew fine. So today I'm going to take these roots to the next level, working them even further. Beside that, I have this field maple that I got from David's from the Toronto Club. I don't think it's ever been root pruned, so this will be a first time for that tree. I have a Trident Maple that I got from Ray's place. I'm not sure if that's ever been root pruned either, but we'll see. And then I've got a tree from the backyard. I think it's an alder. I'm not sure, but yeah. And I think beside it is a red maple. So another couple of trees that have never been root pruned before. All the young seedlings I'll be planting today are hardy trees, so I'm going to put them in plastic training pots so the pots don't crack over the winter. Here's a look at the pots. I've got a 3D printed pot here, a pot from Tom, a training pot, and one I got from the thrift store. This used to be filled with concrete and it had one of those ceramic bonsai trees in it. So I chipped out the concrete and got a nice pot. I'm going to begin with the mulberry tree. You can see it's just starting to break bud. I'll show you a close-up of that. Here's a look at the top of the tree, and you can see the buds are swelling and they're just starting to show some leaves at the end of the buds. This is a perfect time for repotting the tree. I've always wanted a mulberry bonsai, but I just never came across one for sale or anyone in the club who had seedlings or anything like that. So when I saw this little one growing in the backyard, I thought, well, here's my chance. So I dug it up even though it was out of season. I root pruned it, put it in a pot, and it survived, and it grew really well that summer. I have pruned it once on the top of the tree, so now I'm going to do its second root pruning. It should be quite interesting to see what kind of root system it has. Listen to that wind out there. Wow, it's just howling. So I'll get the tree out of the pot. So I'll just kind of loosen up the soil in the pot first. I could even put it back in this same pot. It's quite a nice pot, actually. So here it comes. There we go. So there's the roots. They've grown really well, but I wouldn't say it's root bound. I'm not repotting this tree for health reasons. I'm repotting it to try and get a beautiful radial root base underway. So it's more for aesthetics than, you know, the health of the tree. I also have a lot of liverwort growing in the top of the soil here that I'll get rid of. There's a look at that liverwort. You can see it. So I'll just scrape that away and I'll chuck that outside or somewhere so it doesn't spread inside the greenhouse here. I'm sure they have spores or something. Okay, that's got rid of the liverwort. I don't know what that is, a branch or a root or something. So now, I think they're like low branches that were on the tree. I'll start combing out the roots here. The soil looks like it's in really good shape. It's only a year old. I can probably reuse that soil, I'm sure. So I'm just combing away, trying to get down to where is a good place to start my root base. You can see there's a lot of trunk that was underneath the soil. Because, you know, it was basically like planting a cutting. So I planted it quite deep. Make sure it was safely buried in the soil. And it worked. It grew really well last summer. Because I think I basically cut off almost all the roots on it. I seem to remember thinking, oh, maybe I won't end up with a mulberry tree. Ah, we're getting down to some roots now. So you can see they're not exactly, the perfect radial root base. And that's typical. You can't get discouraged. It takes years and years to build up a beautiful radial root base. So, you just take one step at a time. Do as much root work as you can do, or as that you feel comfortable doing each repotting. And that's all you can do. And slowly over the years, it might take 10, 15, even 20 years before you get that beautiful, beautiful root base going. Because you think, if you only repot some people only repot every 4 or 5 years, and at that rate, in 20 years, you've repotted your tree 4 or 5 times, and that's not, that many opportunities to work on the roots. So when a tree is young like this, I repot more often because I'm trying to get that radial root system established. Once you have it established, you got all your surface roots beautifully distributed and nice and radial and spreading out, then you don't have to worry about your root system aesthetically so much. It's more repotting for the health of the tree. But until you get that beautiful radial root system, you got to work on your roots. You have to repot often, take some chances, and slowly develop that beautiful system that you want. There's my drainage screens. So I think I will reuse the same pot. I think the tree grew really well in it. It's kind of a deep pot, lots of soil volume. So you can see, I basically cut off all the roots, and it's basically like a cutting. I'm just sorting out these roots here, untangling them. Okay, that's looking pretty good. All right, I'm going to, I won't put these roots back in the soil, but I'm going to reuse this soil. It's in fine shape, and I don't want to be mixing soil in this cold weather. I have a little bit of soil, but probably not enough to do all these trees today, so I want to kind of conserve what soil I have. And then, next time I repot this tree, it'll go into some fresh soil once again. Yeah, that looks good soil. I'll get my drainage screens back in the pot, cover up those big holes in the bottom. That way all my soil doesn't fall out. Okay, now I can start adding soil. Fill the pot up. Okay, that's a good height, and then I can plant the tree on there and fill it up right to the top, or just slightly below the lip. Okay, I'll clean this tray up and then we'll start the root pruning. Before I start the root work, I'm going to wash out the roots so my scissors aren't cutting through, chunks of soil on that. Keeps them a little sharper, and I can get a really good clear view of what the root system looks like. I've got a bucket of water in the greenhouse here, so I'll just swish that around. That's good. All right, let's begin the root pruning now. My first step is to comb the roots out. So I'll just carefully arrange them. Spread them out the best I can get them. So you can see they're spreading out quite wide, quite nice. Okay, that's spread out now. Let's begin the root pruning. So I think my first step, my container is only about this wide, this wide. So anything sticking out of the container I can prune off. So I'm going to do a prune around the edges first, taking off the longer roots. And that looks good. Now, I'm coming in and having a look. So, first of all, I've got, I don't know if these were branches or roots or what they were. I think they're branches. I'm going to take them off. They're dead. There's one off. Here's my other one off. And then I've got a root base kind of down here. The trunk comes up. It's got a bit of a kink there. That's okay. But I have some roots that are really high up here. They have to come off. They're out of the root plane. So if all my roots were coming out at this level, I had nothing below, I would cut off the bottom of the trunk. But because I have good roots down below, I can cut off all these higher up roots. Like that. So now, I'm having a look at it. So I've got a really thick root coming out here. I've got one kind of crossing, pointing straight down here. Not the greatest in the world. So, what I'm going to do with this root is prune it off shorter. So I'm going to get my pruners out. We'll try the Greenwood Bonsai pruners. So I'm going to come in and prune it on an angle so that this root continues to flow down into the soil. Right now it kind of flows down nicely and then it goes horizontal. So I'm going to prune it off like this. Here I go. Like that. Nice. So you can see that's cut on an angle now, so it continues to flow down into the soil. There's a root here that's crossing. It's just not radial. I don't think it ever will be, so I'm going to remove it. This one coming down here, it's a strange root. I've got to get rid of it. Like that. This one's fine. These ones below aren't too bad. This one's strange. It comes off. Instead of flowing out from the root, it grows back on itself. This one grows straight down. This one's underneath. These ones at the tip flow out quite nicely. This one goes too far down. These ones. This one can maybe be sorted out there, yeah. There's another root I cut off on an angle, sort of like I just did with this one. Looks quite nice. Okay, let's go underneath now. There's a lot of roots going straight down. I'm going to get rid of. Trying to get the root base flat on the bottom. Somewhere about there. And I think that's getting pretty close to about all I can do with the root system at this point in time. I've done a lot of correcting on it, and it's starting to look, you know, not too bad. So I'll clean up and then we'll get the tree planted. There's a close-up of the root system I'm left with. So there's some good roots there. You know, there'll be ones in future I'll have to prune off that are not so good, but it's getting there. It's not bad for its second root pruning. Now, I think, you know, after this year, next spring, it'll be even better. Then the next spring, even better, and so on until it's quite nice. All right, I'm going to get the tree planted now. I'm just trying to, you know, think of a front for it. Maybe here. Looks okay. All right. Let's get it in the pot and I'll spread out the roots like that.
So then I'll comb them all out, getting them all sorted out and as radial as possible, which is very important at this stage because these roots are all going to thicken up and become surface roots someday. So you want to get them started in the right direction. There, I think that looks good. Now I'll get out my new soil and put that on top. There, that holds the tree up. All right, here I go with the soil. So as I'm pouring the soil, right now you can see the roots are horizontal. They don't go down into the soil on an angle. So what I do is as I'm sprinkling the soil in, like this, I start to wiggle the tree and lift up. Helps get soil underneath the roots. A little more like that. And that tapers those roots down into the soil nicely. And you can work that soil in before you get too much around the tree. Tree staying up by itself in the pot. So I'll get some more soil to top it up now. I'm getting really low on soil. I'm going to, once the weather warms up, which it should in the next few days, I'm going to do a big soil mixing and fill my tub right up so I have lots of soil for spring repotting. So that mulberry tree looks nicely planted in the pot now. And it's going to grow well this season. All right, let's give it a water. All right, here I go with the water. Perfect. And now the mulberry tree can begin growing. In bonsai, I always say that the roots are the most important part of the tree. It's the foundation that your tree is built on. It doesn't mean you just have to work on the roots and only the roots at first. You can work on all aspects of the tree, but you should put the emphasis on creating that root system first before you worry too much about creating the structure of your tree. You'll find that once you've created that beautiful radial root system and you get a nice fine root system in your pot, that the top of the tree comes quite easily. You'll find that your tree will branch easily. You can then start selecting branches. You'll build that root flare and that flare at the base of the trunk that will just give all the characteristics of a mature tree. And it's something that happens fairly quickly. You'll see, you'll start out with a seedling, something like this, and then it looks like a stick in a pot at first, and then the second year, well, it looks like a stick in a pot with a couple of branches. And then by the third or fourth, or sometimes the fifth year, it suddenly thickens and matures, and you start to see the tree come out from the seedling. And it's a wonderful sight. You'll just notice it on your bench one day and you'll say, hey, that little seedling I planted is starting to look like a mature tree. And it's a wonderful feeling. It's one of the best feelings in bonsai, seeing something come from almost nothing. I was hoping to get the other trees planted today, but I was thinking maybe that's too much for one video, so I think I'll just do the mulberry in this one video. I've got to mix up more soil tomorrow. It should be warmer outside, and then I can start the repotting on the other little seedlings. So that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.